Okay, so you remember a while ago when we started talking about language models, I kind of just want to claim some points, basically. Be like, hey, remember years ago when I was like, I think language models are a really big deal. And I think that, like, what happens when we scale them up more is pretty interesting. But alignment is very important. Seems to be what's being played out. In the sense that ChatGPT is very impressive, but it's not actually, like, I don't think it's larger than GPT-3 in terms of, like, parameter count.
I was going to ask that very question because we went from GPT-2 and then we went
These kinds of simple physics experiments, right? So in order to get the model to do what you want, it's able to simulate all kinds of different things, and the prompt is kind of telling it what to simulate. If you give it a prompt that seems like it's something out of a scientific paper, then it will have some simulacrum of a scientist and will write in that style and so on.
clue is in the word chat, I guess, in this.
Right, exactly. And this is not just ChatGPT, by the way. They have various fine-tuned models of GPT-3 as well that they call kind of GPT 3.5, which are fine-tuned in various different ways to be better at, like, following instructions and easier to prompt.
Kind of adversarial GANs you talked about.
Yeah. There's similar, like, a lot of these ML tricks involve training models and then using the output of one model as the training signal for another model. It's quite a productive range of approaches you can get that way. So that's the basic idea, right? But then you cycle it. So once you've got your policy, so to be clear, the RL algorithm is able to train with thousands and thousands of examples because thousands and thousands of, like, instances of getting feedback, because it's not getting feedback from humans. GPT-3 thing, we talked about writing poems, right? And for various reasons, partly to do with the way that these language models do their tokenization, the byte pair encoding stuff, the models have a really hard time with rhyme. I mean, rhyme is tricky, but it's especially tricky when you kind of, like, figure out that kind of thing. And getting GPT-3 to write good poems is tricky. ChatGPT is much more able to write poems, but interestingly, it kind of always writes the same kind of poem, approximately. Like, if you ask it to write you a limerick or an ode or a sonnet, you always get back approximately the same type of thing. And I hypothesizing and adhere to all of the rules of, like, stress pattern and structure and everything of a sonnet, and maybe risk screwing it up? Or do I just do, like, a rhyming poem and kind of rely on the human to prefer that because they don't know that that's not what a sonnet is supposed to look like? It's easy to look at that. But now it's like, if you have, if the thing you're actually trying to do is different from the loss function or the objective function, you get this inverse scaling effect where it gets better and then it gets worse. There was also a great example from GitHub. You've made a mistake somewhere and you've introduced a security vulnerability in your code, let's say. A sort of medium-sized model will figure out what you're trying to do in your code and give you a decent completion. But a big model will spot your bug and say, generating buggy code, are we? Okay. And basically they, like, used language models to generate enough examples of various different types of questions that they could ask models so that they can, like, we're at a point now where you can map a language model on a political compass, right? You can ask its opinion. This type of training. And the effect is bigger for the larger models. They become more likely to tell you that they don't want to be shut down. They become more likely to tell you that they are sentient. They're much more likely to claim that AI is not an existential threat to humanity. One thing that's worth saying is what this isn't saying, because this is still an agent simulated by a language model. This is not like it's more likely to say that it doesn't want to be turned off. This is not the same thing necessarily as like taking actions to prevent itself from being turned off. You have to not to be followed. And so if the thing is claiming to have all of these potentially dangerous behaviors, it's likely to generate plans that have those dangerous behaviors that might then actually end up being implemented. Or if it's like doing its